Hello. Well, it's Sunday night here in Interlagos after what I think has potentially been the longest day I may have ever had at a racetrack. My alarm was set 4 o'clock this morning. Phil, when was yours?
4 as well.
4 o'clock. I think some of the mechanics are up at 3 o'clock this morning because it has been a roller coaster of a day here at Interlagos. So everything compressed into one day. Up at 4, we left the track at 5. Fans were pouring into the circuit at 5:30 this morning. Out there, some sensational weather, a brilliant qualifying session at 7:30, a sensational Grand Prix, a weekend of chaos. My prediction from Thursday that this will be a decisive weekend for the championship has come true. Some fans will be happy it's in one direction, some will be unhappy. It's not. It appears the championship is heading towards Max Verstappen. He's now got a 62-point advantage now over Lando Norris with 3 rounds to go, so he can clinch it in Vegas. But I think no one can argue that today was a day where Max Verstappen showed why he is, at the moment, a 3-time world champion, and likely a 4. Was it one of his best wins, do you think?
I think so, yeah. I think one of his best drives. And I also think one of the best Brazilian Grand Prix drives, isn't it? It's such a historic event with amazing history, title deciders, rain, and this one really had everything. You could argue, he took the lead and then it was kind of settled and he never really looked like he was going to lose it again. But what a race we've had until then. It had everything: turnarounds, crashes, surprise podium contenders, and fantastic drive for him. And I think really just a fantastic way for him to sort of draw a line under all the noise about his driving bias. It's been a very busy triple header off the track as well as on the track. So to seal that off with such an emphatic win, flawless drive, I think, that's exactly what Red Bull wanted, wasn't it?
I saw Christian Horner on the grid before the race, and he said today was a day of it was going to be hero or zero. Basically, he was going to win the race or finish with no points. But made a great start, made progress, clinical moves, brilliant on the brakes into turn 1. And I think there was a critical phase in the middle when the track started to dry out and the Inters were getting a bit worn down. Rain was coming in, and we know in the past if Inter's a bit worn down, they're not very good when more rain comes. So Charles Leclerc was the first to pit, dropped into the pack and wasn't making progress. And Lando Norris, who was behind George Russell at the time, I'm in an iron about what to do. They came into the pits as the rain started to get worse. Esteban Ocon stayed out, Max Verstappen stayed out, Pierre stayed out. And obviously the hope was there would be a red flag. We had the safety car. It looked like that hope wouldn't come off because safety car, you can keep going round and round and round because the rain was going to clear. And then Franco Colapinto, in front of his home crowd, had a crash this morning in qualifying. He binned it in pretty spectacular fashion into the barriers. Red flag comes out, and we know red flag gives a free tyre change. So basically, Lando Norris had gone from pole position in the race with Max down in 17th to being behind him in the race. He said afterwards, felt Max got a bit lucky today. Do you think that's a fair assessment, Phil?
A little bit, but you also make your luck, don't you? I mean, sure, Max maybe had less to lose from where he was, but they judged the situation correctly. In hindsight, I think McLaren were still satisfied with their decision making, because you can make the right decisions or you can make the wrong decisions and get lucky.
Yeah.
So it really depends. I don't think they can have really any complaints, especially because Max and Red Bull did everything right. Not so much on McLaren. Both drivers made a few errors. So again, it comes down to execution on a race as tricky as today's was, and you have to tip your hat to Red Bull and Max. They did everything perfectly.
Yeah, I think world championships are made by seizing the opportunities. And the day you can win a race, you've got to win that race. You can't finish second and third. There are ups and downs. What Red Bull have done, and what especially Max Verstappen has done all year, is he's taking the opportunity when they can come there. But there's been races he's not had the fastest car, and he won them. You think of Imola, you think of the Spanish Grand Prix, which was his previous proper Sunday win before this one. He's done it. And on the flip side, McLaren, made huge progress with a car. At times they've been fastest, at times they've been second fastest by hundreds of seconds. But I think today's kind of typical of typical of their season in some respects, that the potential and opportunity was there to grab a win, and it didn't quite come off for various factors. And it kind of spiraled a bit out of control at the start, didn't with the aborted start, and this kind of chaos for Lance Stroll entertaining the fans down at turn 4.
Yeah, well, Lance Stroll's off and on formation lap, that was quite special in itself. We spoke to Oliver Oakes afterwards, and he had to laugh because he was working with young drivers before, and he had the same thing happen in F4, whereas like, okay, these are young drivers, they're not used to it. So it was really funny for him to see it in F1 at the pinnacle of motorsport.
So Norris's race after that kind of didn't spiral out of control, but I think didn't go the way he wanted. The start wasn't great. George Russell got ahead of him. McLaren had a bit more wing than other teams this weekend, which made them brilliant in the middle sector. Fast enough in the sprint and the dry to pretty much dominate that race, but left them exposed on the straights. So once he was behind Russell, he couldn't get past. It's very difficult. Then there was the strategy issue that we talked about with the red flag, put him behind Verstappen. Then he made a mistake at the restart and went off. Then there was a second safety car period, and he went off at turn 1 again. From the outside, it just looked like this was a man under pressure making mistakes. But I spoke to Andrea Stella after the race. He said basically today was a story of the McLaren is not very good in wet conditions compared to other cars. And I think it's a theme we've seen up and down the grid. I think these cars are very aero sensitive. They're very critical to ride height, and the diameter of an inter-tyre and a wet tyre is different to a slick. And we're talking millimetres here, but that millimetre can make a difference in a car being in the perfect aero window and being out of it. So I think some cars, the Haas for example, maybe the Ferrari, maybe the McLaren, the wet conditions don't suit it as much. And there are others that can come into it, potentially like the Red Bull. Throw on top of that, McLaren, and Andrea wasn't offering many details, but just a little bit. The McLaren, it's this brake locking problem. There's some sensitivity there that was causing it, and this was causing Lando's problems. So everything compounded, and he just didn't get the results. It was disappointing for Lando. Championship, was always going to be an uphill struggle, but I think it's now a very, very big uphill struggle. But Phil, we're at 62 points, 3 races to go. Has he got any hope?
No. I mean, he should say he's still aiming for it and is going to fight till the end, as he should, because you're an athlete. But realistically, Max could win it in Vegas if he wins and Lando doesn't finish too high up. I mean, yeah, I don't think there's any hope. But yeah, it's interesting you mentioned all these teams struggling with their behavior in the rain.
Yep.
And it opened the opportunity for an amazing comeback story, didn't it, with Alpine? So they were absolutely unbelievably quick in the wet, which nobody saw coming. Okay, they made some progress recently in the dry as well, but that was unbelievable.
Alpine, in the past, surprise race wins like this, or not only one, but surprise results like this, let's say, can be down to a strategy gamble or doing something out of the ordinary. But this was pace. Esteban Ocon was able to hold Max Verstappen off in the first stint. Pierre was up there. George Russell couldn't get on terms with them. They came through, and it was a very strong performance. Potentially, that car is suited to wet, but equally, upgrades are working. It's pushing forwards. It's doing well. And I think the team cannot quite believe that this morning when they woke up at 4 a.m. or 3 a.m., they were 9th in the Constructors' Championship. They've now moved up to 6th position, which is a jump of 3 places. And roughly in Formula 1, you're talking $9 to $10 million a place. So today, almost a $30 million payday for Alpine, potentially, if they can hold on to it, which is a remarkable story. And I think this is the kind of the thing that all Formula 1 teams kind of dream of, is these big money results, and this is what they push all the time to get there. It's kind of gamble, not necessarily a gamble, it's the kind of result teams will be loving to have next time out in Las Vegas. Last year was Ferrari very strong there.
It's interesting because Charles said because Ferrari's improved their tyre performance, they're raced in so much with managing the temperature of the tyres. It might actually be a drawback in Vegas when it's very cold. So on the opposite side of the coin, where they were strong last year, it might actually be a weaker circuit for them.
Yeah, so we'll be, it's a little bit of a gap now. Couple of weeks, I'm not doing Vegas. I don't quite fancy all the travel in the crazy early mornings. So Phil will be there. He'll be there.
We'll have them for punishment.
Yeah. All the updates from Autosport for that Grand Prix.